Hey everybody, this is Jason, Zombie Collector, and I'm doing another movie introduction or just spitballing a few films that I have in my collection and let you all know what's out there. Maybe you've seen it. We could talk about it in the comments, or I can introduce you to something you may have never seen before, and have that conversation. So the first up is a never talked about movie from Miramax. Now that's a dirty word nowadays because of Harvey Weinstein, but Miramax had done with an amazing all-star cast of essentially Italian American actors. And I don't know if a lot of these guys never ended up in a movie all together. And this one they did, and it's a great drama. It's more like a thriller drama. There's some action in it, and it's one that doesn't get discussed a lot. It is probably Sylvester Stallone's best acting role he's ever done. He's definitely not in his comfort zone. He put on a ton of weight to make him kind of self look oafish, kind of like me all the time, opposed to his normal rippled for your pleasure, ripped physique, and that is Copland. It has Ray Liotta, Harvey Keitel, Robert De Niro is in this, and I think there's a few other. James Gandolfini's in it, Michael Rappaport, Robert Patrick's in it, Annabelle Scorea. I forgot how you pronounce her names, but I'm sure you know who I'm talking about. And Peter Berg are the main people in this movie. Now, the premise of the movie is Sylvester Stallone's kind of. He's a sheriff, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. He is a sheriff in the town. Yes, he's a sheriff in this small town. The town's called Copland. That's where all these cops live. And, a lot of these guys he looks up to, a lot of these Harvey Keitel characters and Robert De Niro, they're kind of like, Ray Liotta. They're all these, like, kind of icons to the Stallone character. He's almost kind of, like, treated as, like an afterthought. Like, he's a cop, but he's too kind of, like, oafish and kind of just, unaware, kind of just what's the word I'm looking for? He's kind of like just naive. That's the word about what's really going on in Copland, in this town, this city. And as the story unfolds, he has to start making some hard decisions on is he going to bring down his idols and his heroes that he's looked up to in the police force, or is he going to look the other way? It is a great, great movie that does not get talked about a lot. I don't know why, because it's a great cast. Everybody is firing on all cylinders on that film, and it is one that, again, it has a lot going on for you. You have great acting, you have great directing, but I think his name's James Mangold. Yes, excuse me. And so that movie has a lot going for it. Highly recommend it. If nothing else, just for the performances. The story's great. The story's fantastic. The music, the score in it is awesome. Highly recommend that movie. Another movie that is a '90s staple of horror is Candyman. Tony Todd. I talked about Tony Todd in one of my videos previously about 5 things you didn't know about Zombie Collector, and I talked about meeting him. And I'm not going to get into that story. You can watch that video. That's about maybe 6 or 7 videos back, I would say, if you want to hear that story. But this is what kind of put Tony Todd on the map. He was in lots of other stuff. He was in Glory, I believe. He was in Hatchet. He was in The Rock and Final Destination. He's in lots of different stuff. Smaller roles, I believe, of course, but he's front and center in this with Virginia Madsen in it, and directed by Bernard Rose, who's a British director, which is interesting because it's a British director from a British story written by Clive Barker, but it takes place in Cabrini Green, which is was in the heart of I guess the ghetto of Chicago. It's been revitalized over the years, and now it's not even there anymore. And what's left of it has been completely changed to make it like it's a hot new happening area. But back in the '90s when they filmed this, it was a rough, dangerous place in the south side of Chicago. So anyways, and the movie, a lot of times you all may or may not know, but essentially Candyman's kind of like the urban version of Bloody Mary. If you say his name in a mirror, he'll come and kill you. and the Virginia Madsen's character, um, she ends up being stalked essentially by Candyman, and they do a little bit of a backstory about why he is essentially this vengeful ghost spirit entity, whatever you want to call it. But anyways, it's a very interesting movie. It has lots of good special effects. Tony Todd, I think, is really great in it. Um, so you have a lot of that. It has a very '90s feel. I'm stalling a little bit talking about it because they made a remake, and I don't think it's out yet, but they made a remake, and I just saw just the trailer of it, and like anything nowadays, it's like this remake is completely trying to reimagine the original Candyman. So this already has some like very strong overtones about slavery and white versus black or vice versa, and again, Cabrini Green is taking place in some kind of slums, ghetto, black part of Chicago, and this white woman shows up and is brought into this world of this boogeyman essentially. And I see the trailer for the remake, and it's just like essentially like a way for white people to get killed. And I don't know if that's what it's going to be about, but that's what the trailer alludes you to do or to believe, and it just takes away because now it's like we got to get woke, like they do with so many movies and TV shows nowadays. They just can't leave a story, just have a good story or have, there's undertones in it. There's, if it's there if you want to watch it or you want to hear it. If it's not, you can kind of gloss over it. It's not like a sledgehammer to your brain telling you this is the way you're supposed to believe and think. You got to be woke. So I do enjoy a more traditional movie experience. And then a movie that is very, I think, polarizing for lots of people because of the raw brutality of it, and I really like it. It's the very first DVD I'd ever bought. I didn't know very much about it, but I was a huge fan of Edward Norton, so I gave it a shot. It is American History X, and this movie is really a tough pill to swallow, let's just say. Edward Norton plays a character who his dad years ago, him and then Edward Furlong is also in it, who was in T2, that T2 fame. But his father was a firefighter, and he gets killed in a black neighborhood, and they shoot him while he's putting out a fire, and of course, other firefighters. So this leads Edward Norton's character to becoming a neo-Nazi, essentially, and he ends up being like this, like essentially pretty much the ringleader of this neo-Nazi group, and he ends up a couple black guys trying to rob his house. They don't know obviously whose house they're robbing, and he ends up killing them both. And I'm not gonna get into the details of it because it's pretty gruesome and grisly. He goes to prison. While he's in prison, he befriends or a black guy befriends him, and his heart starts changing, his mind starts changing, because no one wants to give him the time of day. They want, he's in a danger zone in prison. He's no longer the big fish in a little pond. Now he's a little fish in a huge pond, and he starts seeing like what Nazism and the white supremacy that he held those beliefs held on to, not being the same in prison, because he has this like naive perspective of what it is to be this like master race, and then he realizes like these guys all have. They make all these concessions and all this kind of stuff. And he's like, why are you friends with the Mexicans and the blacks and this and that? And why are you working with them? We're supposed to be above them. And they're just like, oh, you don't understand how it's like in prison. And you got to do these things. And you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. So he now he's an island unto himself. And so the white supremacist Nazis are going to like pretty much like beat him down for rejecting them, because he's like, I'm this pure guy who doesn't need any help from you or anybody if you're going to be mixing with the races. And so this black guy befriends him and pretty much stands up for him, and then these other black guys pretty much back him up. He has like swastikas all over his his chest, and he has all these like Nazi symbols. And I mean, he obviously screaming, "I'm not going to be your friend" to the black inmates. And over the course of the time he's in prison, his heart changes, like I said, his mind changes, and he realizes that he was wrong, that is not at all what he should be doing. But while he's in prison, his brother, who's the Edward Furlong character, becomes what's the word I'm looking for? He becomes radicalized, and he follows in Edward Furlong's footsteps. So he's in prison for, let's say, 10 years or whatever. So when he gets out, or 12 years, because this ended up being a manslaughter because they were coming to break into his house or kill them. So he killed them. He killed the black guys in defense. When he could have let them go or just let the police take care of it, he ended up killing them. So it wasn't necessarily murder that he got arrested for and in prison for. So anyways, so then the story goes where essentially now Edward Furlong, Edward Norton's character is trying to get his brother off this path because he realizes the error of his ways. And now his brother can't believe now Edward Furlong's character can't believe that his brother is like now a sympathizer and no longer this, he more becomes an apologist, I should say, and no longer a Nazi sympathizer. And he can't understand that. And so there's a story that connects them two together. And there's lots of little inroads you see and how the mindset changes for him, but how his brother becomes radicalized. And then there's lots of things that happens throughout Furlong's story that comes to fruition at the end. And then his mother starts dating a Jewish guy and all this stuff, and that gets brought up a lot in it. And so there's a lot of different little winks and nods to a lot going on. Edward Furlong in this movie is so hateable at first, and then turned into so powerful later on of his transformation. I highly recommend this movie. I've kind of I've let a lot of details out because I want people who have not seen it watch it because there's a lot going on and there's a lot of great acting in there. Fairuza Balk's in it. You also have who else is in there? There's a Stacy Keach. He's really good in it. Elliot Gould is in it. That's Beverly D'Angelo plays the mom. I mean, you have a lot of great actors in this movie and a lot of good character acting going on in this. Ethan Suplee is in it also, and he plays a very different character for sure than what you normally have seen. So anyways, guys, I highly recommend that movie. Super, super highly recommend that movie so much because it shows a true transformation on camera, which a lot of times it's hard to see on a camera, and it really hits you the heartstrings. And the way the movie plays out towards the end is really powerful. And then lastly is Apocalypto, Mel Gibson's directed movie. This one flies under the radar as well because the entire movie is spoken in some kind of Latin American language, like a Mayan or Incan language or something. I'm not for sure exactly what language they're supposed to be speaking, but it's a different, obviously almost like a dead language. It's a Mayan, apparently, as I'm looking on the back of it. And the main character's name's Jaguar Paw, and there's another tribe that goes around grabbing up and enslaving the other smaller tribes. And Jaguar Paw is one of their warriors, and all he wants to do, he was captured by this other tribe, and they go around, like I said, killing them all off. Essentially, all the warriors they kill off, and then they keep their women for their own concubines, and they kill off the boys, or they turn them into warriors for the Incans or Mayans or whatever. And he's in one of the smaller tribes, and it is beautifully shot. It's all in that language. There's no English being spoke whatsoever. A lot of people, I think, passed over this movie, one, because for whatever reason, people don't like Mel Gibson. People can't make mistakes. He's apologized for him. And this kind of came out right around that time or right after all that happened. And people still hung up on 2004, whatever. But anyways, he directs it. He's not even in it. I think now enough time has passed. People have probably moved on. But there was a time that I think people just want to hate on this movie because Mel Gibson's behind it. But there's nobody in this movie you'd recognize. I don't think there's any famous people in it. These are all indigenous actors or actors that were maybe Mexican or Latin American, Hispanic descent who were obviously acting as these tribal tribespeople. It is fantastic. And essentially the short of it is his wife and son, Jaguar Paul's wife and son, he lowers them down into a trap so they don't get found by this warring tribe. And then he gets captured, and he spends his whole time trying to get back to them and save them before somehow they get killed or they get captured or whatever. So it's like this rush against time, and he's trying to find his way back to saving them. And it's a husband and a father. He'll do anything he can to save his children, his child, and his pregnant wife on top of that. So he has like a 5-year-old and a pregnant wife who's like 9 months pregnant. So it is a absolutely stunning movie. There's a lot of great action. It is definitely a human drama. I highly, highly recommend it. The gore in this movie is pretty impressive. I'm sure there's some CGI, but there's a lot of practical effects. But the way he takes the fight to the warriors of the other tribe is impressive. And it's just basically pretty much him in a jungle getting back to his family. And there's a journey along the way between him and some of his friends that he's captured with. And then they go to like the big like Mayan temple or Incan temple, and then he tries to get back to his family after being captured. And it is amazing. It is such a great film. It's beautifully shot. Mel Gibson does a fine job directing. Like, you are totally invested in this character, which is great because it's a culture, a language, a way of life, an ancient time that has passed that none of us understand, but you're completely invested in him because it's a story we all can relate to. If you're a parent or you're a child of a parent, or if it's your mom or your dad, you want to protect your family, what at all costs. And that's what happens here. And this movie is kind of hard to find. It's actually kind of rare now to find this movie because it was like, I think, so crapped on early on. There wasn't a lot of need for. There wasn't a lot of desire to get that film. And now you can't hardly find it. So when you see one, you want to grab it if you can find it. But anyways, guys, that's my 4 movie discussion. Hopefully you all enjoyed. It's definitely not just horror. I want to talk about some thrillers, some dramas, some action. Let's see what you all thought. I got some heady ones this time. It wasn't just going to be like real superficial stuff. So let me know what you think, guys. It's been fun to talk about films and just introduce people to some movies, and hopefully y'all enjoying it. So again, guys, it's all about the comments for me. Let me know what you think. And until next time, peace.